What's up, y'all? It's your boy Kairos, and I am bringing you the definitive Fury Warrior guide for solo shuffle battlegrounds. Basically being the top damage in every game possible and being a nuisance as much as possible, while actually being able to still global people regardless what Fury spec you are, if you're Mountain Thane and or if you are Slayer. This guide will get you 2400 guaranteed if you follow the guide. You listen to what I say. I had no problem doing it last season. I'm already 1800 in twos. I went 30 and 13. As you can see, 30 and 13. 43 games played, already 1803. My goal is at least 2100 by the end of the week in twos, or maybe just depending on how the season goes so far, because there could be nobody queuing, and I don't like sitting in 8-minute queues waiting for one game, right? Or queuing into people that are 500 rating below you, and you're literally slaughtering them, and you're getting 4 rating. But anyway, so there's that, right? Kind of how it was last season for me a little bit at the beginning. It just kind of slowed the gameplay down so much where I was actually leveling on the Warriors to actually be able to play the game and still get practice in. Anyway, so as far as gearing, versatility is your main stat. No matter what class in PvP, unless if you're some weird one-shot spec like a Frost Death Knight, and even then, Frost Death Knight Enhancement Shaman, where they had like no versatility last season and they were just all one-shot or nothing with either their totem or ascendance, right? Now we're Warriors, the stats really haven't changed, except we just have more of it, essentially. So that actually opens up a few different gameplay options as far as reversing the nerf that we got, the 15% to Rampage and Bladestorm, which Bladestorm is still hitting like a train. It applies a 10% damage buff, so your executes are actually huge. Even as Mountain Thane and as Slayer, your executes are still huge. I don't necessarily like the execute playstyle with Mountain Thane because it adds much more button bloat, I feel like, and Bloodthirst is already dealing so much more damage compared to the beginning of the expansion, so it's still very strong to run the double stack into once they're below 35% with Mountain Thane. Of course, you can get that Thunder Blast proc, and get that, what is it, like 50% increased damage on Bloodthirst or whatever it is, and then you have that extra 50% plus your Enrage from your Mastery and your versatility, and it's basically like almost, it's pretty much an execute, right? You're basically one-shotting someone if it crits. Even if it doesn't crit, it still hits amazingly hard, right? It's still like taking 20%, 15% of their HP, depending on their armor. Armor is higher, but honestly, I played into other Fury Warriors, other Warriors, Death Knights, Monks, Druids. It still feels the same. Like the armor penetration, the armor amount hasn't really changed anything because the stats are so high, right? I'm rocking the 2 set right now for increased damage through my gloves and my chest. If we look at, I believe it's this right here, I don't like the stats on the helmet except for the Mastery. The critical strike is dog shit, but we actually have a good tier set now, so run the 4-piece. I just wanted the Mastery and haste, and the gloves gave me haste and versatility, right? I wanted a little more versatility because I'm low. Honestly, I'm pretty low in versatility, but I still have quite a bit of versatility. I have 20% versatility. As I get more stats off of other pieces of gear, that number will only get higher. As far as right now, since I already have, I used the 9 heraldry that you get for the week. I've done these 3 in the neck, so that way I still have gems. So I have 6 gems, right? I still have Chris Mastery, and versatility. I'm probably going to change this out for Mastery and haste because I don't need the versatility. I'm going to get from the blood tokens right here. I'm going to get I'm going to go over here. All right, let me just slide this out of the way for a second. We're going to talk to this guy over here. We're going to get our bloody tokens, which we're going to go talk to the NPC over there to get our quest, right? To get our bloody tokens. But essentially, I'm going to go for these right here. Or what you could also do, because we're going to get more, you could actually get another tier piece, but you're already going to get another piece from PvP. So you could do that option, but I want the 2 pieces because you're still going to be able to afford that 3rd piece for next week. So by the 3rd week, you have 4 set, and I believe we should have our 2 weapons, right? Or your 1 weapon, depending on how it goes. But I'm going to go for the cloak and the bracers, because that's 2 pieces down. Now I have 2 pieces here that are eliminated. I don't need a neck. I need a shoulder, head, belt, pants, and boots, and then trinkets. And then this guy's fully geared. The weapons are already basically handed to you, right? Because you can't buy them until you get the, I believe, I think we're going to still get the thing, right? So, yeah, prize weapons of conquest, we're going to be able to get those. That's actually a pretty badass axe, actually. I haven't seen that yet. But anyway, so there's that, right? So there's a little bit of a gearing path for you. Of course, you can kind of make up your own choice. At the beginning season, it matters to some degree, but eventually as the season opens up, you get more gear coming in, crafted gear and all that, more heraldries. You're going to be able to get all the gear that you need, right? So I already have the 2Ps. I already have 3 purples, which are fully everything that I need. Six gems. These were just recrafts. You can recraft them. You don't have to make them over again. Make sure you don't sell them or destroy them out of your bags. Just keep those, and there you go. So as far as the talent builds, I found that this talent build from last season actually had a lot of synergy with a lot of the Slayer build and also the Mountain Thane build. Essentially, you're not running Dragon Roar, you're running pure damage, and they actually buff this build indirectly because of how they changed the general tree for Warrior. So the thing is it kind of changes up a little bit, but not much, right? They basically made the bottom of the talent tree at this level a lot more accessible in between everything else, right? I don't like this talent. It's a PvE thing. Having Recklessness and Avatar go off of each other, that's going to be the only thing you're ever going to want to do. It works great with Mountain Thane, works great with everything, right? It just synergizes really well with whatever you do. You run that every game because you no longer get that double Odin's Fury. And Odin's Fury, they actually buffed it. I'm actually kind of curious if it is good. And if it is, I'll actually make another link below this video kind of showing you how good it is. And I'll just say, hey, run this build with the bleed build. It's actually really gross. I'm actually wanting to try some like Reckless Abandon build. But honestly, as far as it sits right now, this does not do enough damage. This actually only adds about 1% bleed damage to your entire rotation, and you're not always going to have a 100% crit chance, right? Even with Recklessness, it's not a 100% guaranteed crit chance. So those crushing blows aren't going to be as crazy as you think they are, and they've already buffed Bloodthirst and Raging Blow so much. That 1 minute 30 cooldown, you're only going to be able to get that twice in a solo shuffle, is where you could burst 6 to 8 times in a solo shuffle and or an arena, right? Because most games, once you get to a certain rating, depending on the comp you're playing, a team's going to run out of cooldown, someone's going to die. So that's how I like to think of every class. What can you do in the 2 to 3 minute mark? Warrior is all about doing as much damage as possible, staying on a target that they can hit, and keeping them basically debuffed and stopping any damage and countering their goes with pure damage and or intervening, using utility spells to basically stop that go, right? Disarm, Safeguard, Intervene, Rally, which is also a nice change. And like a big one that I like is being able to use Rallying Cry and the 1 minute cooldown for the Boomkin Root Beam. You can do that, get out of a Root Beam, so you actually completely counter Boomkins. So Boomkin BM, Boomkin Warrior, Boomkin anything, you completely counter. You get out, you get your healer out of the Root Beam. There you go. They walk out, they can start healing you again, right? You get 2 stuns, you get everything as far as that. Gearing. Well, I guess rotation-wise. Let's talk rotation. Depending on the talent trees that you go with in this, right? You're going to run... Basically, Rampage is always your priority spell. If you have it, you can use it. You want to use it because you get all your cooldowns back quicker, which means more damage as the game goes on. which means even if you're hitting a Shadow Priest in Dispersion, it's worth still spamming Rampage into them, even though they're taking, what is it, like 95% less damage, because you're recouping that cooldown. It's basically an investment to, I'm going to chop your head off in the next 30 seconds button. But basically, Rampage, depending on how you want to do it, this is kind of more of a personal thought. With Slayer, this is about Slayer, just to clarify, because Execute has a thing with Death Drive, right? You can run the one strike and get that 15%. What I like to do is maintain Ashen Juggernaut. Ashen Juggernaut just makes fucking Executes crit no matter what you do. Yeah, Recklessness, it's like a 70% chance to crit. They're always going to crit. I'm already having main hands. I'm already having Executes crit for 3 million. And that's a lot of damage, right? So I'm thinking once we're fully geared, we're fully decked out with all the sockets, all the enchants, everything. I don't even have full enchants right now either, right? I have the weapon chest, that's it. And whatever's on my rings. I don't have speed, I don't have the legs, I don't have anything. But I have most of my enchants. I'm thinking about 4 million, and that's kind of the thing. About 4 million executes, for getting buffed by anyone, probably even higher, right? Monk, Orb, their debuff, their 5% damage. What is it, like 20% damage overall that you're dealing extra to them? I'm not sure how that counts, but Priest Dark Wings at 10% from Atonement. It's a lot of damage. But regardless, that's 400,000 extra damage. So Execute's already hitting really hard. You can go with 1 stack, 3 stack. I'm finding out that Execute is actually being able to hit upwards of 4. In a lot of cases, I get a 2.6 million crit, 1.4 million. Execute is hitting like a train. It takes like half of someone's health bar, right? Rampage still feels really good. Bladestorm's a lot of damage, but your rotation is Opener, Onslaught, 2 Raging Blows, pop all your cooldowns, Rampage, Execute, or Bladestorm. So you can try to get more of those stacks of Death Drive. I believe it's what it's actually called, or Imminent Demise, or whatever the hell it's called, right? Gives you a sudden, yeah, that's Death Drive. It's the heal from the sudden death, right? So you get more damage from that. You get 50% basically passively from that is where Ashen Juggernaut has to be maintained. And I feel kind of like I have enough haste just to basically always get that. So Raging Blows, Bloodthirst, those are your spells that are just your fillers until you have something else, or until basically Onslaught is off of cooldown. But I find even with this build, having more rage all the time is really, really strong. You could even do something like this. I like this as well, because sometimes you do get Raging Blow Starved as Ashen or as Slayer. So I'll do stuff like this, and I'll get a ton of I'll have that extra those extra Raging Blows throughout the match. So that's something I like to do. I don't necessarily care for the critical, the auto attack damage. It doesn't really do anything as Fury. Of course it does, but still, so much of your other damage is so high anyway, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to move on to Mountain Thane. Hopefully the tree, okay, it looks like it's actually going to work. So I'm going to explain this a little bit, because Mountain Thane is actually much more different. Your priority is a lot more different versus Slayer. So the way Slayer works essentially is using your upfront damage from Execute to basically secure the kill. Your sustained damage is really, really good as Fury right now, because from season 1 to season 2, basically Fury's damage was actually dog shit outside of Rampage and Execute and Bladestorm. Like it was terrible. Like you always had to secure, like if someone could get away with you, like a Prescript or Evoker, what is it, like Rescue or whatever it's called, they could essentially grip you away on your cooldowns, and that would stop your whole go, right? So your whole go would get stopped, and you'd be Bladestorming on them. Even if you storm bolted that target, you would lose so much damage, right? You would lose a lot of damage. So, Mountain Thane was kind of always like the big sustain, because you also don't have that extra mobility. Whereas it like if you heroic leap, it knocks 4 seconds off charge, and each charge knocks 2 seconds off heroic leap, essentially. So, with the Mountain Thane, I like to run as much sustained damage as I can, right? So I'm not running things like Execute. You can still run Execute. Execute's still really strong as Mountain Thane, but then again, I like predictability in a warrior, and knowing like I'm gonna have an Execute then, or if I get the target below 35%, my Bloodthirst is gonna be able to hit them for 2.5, 3 million damage. And they're slow enough throughout the entire game. It's not like I'm chasing a mage. And instead of prioritizing Bladestorm as damage, I could do something like this, right? Of course, we are dropping Bladestorm, so there is some loss of value from that. But your base Recklessness or your base Bloodthirst damage is actually so much damage. Because that's 50%, right? So we're looking at 50%. And then Bloodthirst and Rampage damage is increased by 25%. So it's 25%. So our base in PvP is 45k, right? About 750k. So with Mountain Thane, actually, yeah. So it's actually quite a bit, right? Yeah. So then we get this proc. So then we're dealing 35%. Now we're dealing 105% extra damage with this spell. So now, and we're in D stance. Let's go outside of D stance. Throw a heroic leap. So 263k. So it's already hitting, for 1.5 million, not accounting for being enraged. Now, if we're enraged, now it flies up to 1.2 million. So you can see where this gets really, really, really fucking high and starts to get really, really scary. Now, we are doing more damage. I think that is modifying off correctly off the tooltip, but I'm not really sure. But we got an Execute proc there. Now it's 1.7, 1.5, 1.6. Let's see if we get a proc from that. Sometimes it procs it crazy, sometimes it doesn't. But it's something that, as you go throughout, and Slayer, I am running the Meat Cleaver stuff because you're just going to be doing so much more damage. But here you go. We're enraged 2.2 million off of that one, right? So if we go into details here, 2.2 million, 2.4, and we are cleaving. So that is a lot more damage. And actually, I don't have the right macro on this one. So I actually need to put this one in here. It's basically just a Swifty One Shot macro. That's all it is. It's just mountain. Basically, Recklessness. I have Thunderous Roar top, Recklessness, Avatar, and my racial, right? And if I have an unused Trinket, I just throw it in there. I press it, and it fucking works, right? I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but I found that's what works. But regardless, you're gonna be running this, and your Mountain Thane is just, it's going to do so much sustained damage over the entire game that someone's eventually just going to fall over because of Thunder Blast and the Bloodthirst. And even with the Rampage nerf, I mean, that's pretty much that. You can switch out into Powerful Enrage, and it just increases your damage by 15%. That is an option. And running a little more haste, because we are actually going to get more haste with our off pieces, but we're also getting it more mastery, and we could actually run more haste. Once we hit about that 60%, we could actually have about 20% haste and actually just change it up a little bit in here to, let's say, run Frenzy, and we still have all our cleave, and we still have all our killing power with Vicious Contempt. Mountain Thane, one of the best things about being a warrior is being able to run Mountain Thane and sit in D stance and do huge sustained damage throughout the entire match, and never worry about being randomly fucking killed by intervening someone, because we have stand on your feet, keep your feet on the ground. So basically, we're taking 8% less damage. If there's any physical damage, let's just round it up to 10, like a rounding error, right? So these stands plus all our versatility, it stacks up, right? It stacks up a lot. So, and then there's another Slayer build with bleeds. I want to show you. So it goes into the same kind of concept. Instead of running, basically, I didn't fix that part. That's my mistake. But basically, we'll run something like this, right? So we'll have hold on here. I need to make sure that this is buffing Meat Cleaver. Yeah. So this is actually buffing your Meat Cleaver. So this is actually buffing all of your... I actually changed some talents around and renamed a few things, but and didn't realize that I hadn't changed it, right? So you're still running like all the same Slayer stuff, right? You're still getting your Ash and Juggernaut. You're still getting your big damage from everything. You're still getting your Vicious Agility. Or yeah, it's 5 seconds by charge when you use Heroic Leap, and charge reduces the cooldown of Heroic Leap by 2 seconds. So, same concept of Mountain Thane here, except Thunderclap, you're using Whirlwind, right? So, you get your 4 stacks, essentially. And then you pop all your shit, and you're just doing a ton of damage. So, like, I come out of this, I'm gonna use my Rampage into my Execute, and this is basically all I'm doing. You still have a ton of sustain with this. You can definitely still just run Slayer completely, and then, but if you're going into like a double melee cleave, let's say, you can still run Powerful Enrage, and that's just 15% more damage. Just make sure that you have about, you know, that 16 to 20% haste, right? Because we're gonna have the stats to do it. I'm already at, in PvP combat, I'm at 11, I believe. Yeah, let's get rid of that. Enrage. I'm at 13. So I'm pretty close to that. Where I can just run that, and then I get the 8% from Frenzy, right? If I stick on one target, but if I have to swap, I lose that, and I Rampage someone else. But that's where we're sitting, right? So those are kind of the 3 builds now that I've come up with. You can change, I would say, the Slayer build a lot more. But I found that the Slayer, like, this, without running any bleeds, you do tend to lose a little bit of burst damage. But the way that they buffed Armored to the Teeth, well, not just Armored to the Teeth, but dual specialization, and increases your movement speed by 4 and 5, and then a 10. I've been thinking about running Single-Minded Fury. And again, if I find Single-Minded Fury to be actually really good, I'll actually make a video about that. I'll make a little 2400 like playlist thing to kind of showcase kind of how good that is, because you do get that 5%, I believe. Yeah, 5%. Now you're sitting at 15, 25, and then plus all the enchants that you like to run its Fury. I believe you get like what, 11%. Then there's a gem that gives you another, I think from all your gems it's like 8% more. It adds up, right? You're gonna be fucking flying across the map as Fury, and especially with this season being the way that it's gonna be, where it's super caster heavy dominant, where one Warlock can coil you, Chaos Bolt into a Shadow Fury Chaos Bolt, and basically kill your ass. You gotta be on top as you're on your game as a warrior, and actually watching your healers debuffs to know when that Warlock is gonna be essentially havocing to coil, and using your Spell Reflect and or your Blade Storm to avoid the coil, right? And a Slayer, you just send it. You don't care. You want to do as much damage as you can physically can, because as a warrior, that's what you got. You just grind all their cooldowns down. You get all your cooldowns back as fast as possible. Eventually, the enemy healer runs out of cooldowns and can't keep them alive, or they So that's kind of the thing. Slayer's mobility. Mountain Thane is kind of your big cleave, just sustain damage. You can run more single target with it and go essentially into something like that, right? You could go, okay, I don't need the big things here, but I'll run, let's say, I like the big thing here, but we could go into, let's say, something like this. We could drop all this, go into that, and, well, I kind of want Blade Storm. Just in case, we could still run something like this and actually still have a hell of a experience. And you can actually copy over into the Slayer single target with no bleeds if you don't like bleeds. But again, that's what I like to do. So that's something, like, I like to just experiment and see what I like. But these are just kind of like some of the things, like, okay, Execute's already dealing so much more damage, and that's where the Cruel Strikes come in and make Slayer execute's actually fucking insane, especially with Ashen Juggernaut, and now we just have more haste, so more haste equals more damage, right? Because we're getting more Killing Machine procs, we're getting more Rage, we're getting more Rampages, our rotation feels better, and that actually opens up, if we do get nerfed, well, we still have Powerful Enrage to kind of reverse that a little bit, because eventually that haste cap becomes so crazy, and it does feel good as Fury, don't get me wrong, but there's a point to where you can only spam so much so quick that haste, it feels like it loses some value, right? At least to me, that's what it feels like. Once you're like sitting at like 90% haste, it almost feels like you can only react so fast because you're hitting one point. Oh, I gotta go. Eventually your reaction time does get a little faster with Fury anyway, so you kind of get used to it because you're literally mashing your fucking keyboard. But that's just something I've wanted to bring up. But 25 to 30% verse. I would say anywhere from 23 really to 26, because we are going to be running the 4 sets, so we're going to lose that on 4 pieces. But one of the, I think, let's see here, just to verify. Ring has it. Nothing else. The hands have it. Nothing else though. Nope. Yep, those are that's the only piece with versatility on it. Everything else has crit or fucking haste. Or maybe mastery. Like our actual stats are terrible this season. I think it's maybe better for arms, but even then, it's just still not even like our best stats. It's dog shit. Unless they nerf crit, but still. It doesn't really benefit Fury. Maybe if you're playing single-minded, maybe it works out a little bit just because of how it works. You're attacking a lot faster, right? And you're using one-handers instead. But those are kind of the builds I got going. As far as PvP talents, these 2 talents work really great into boomkins, stuff like that. Rebound has actually been buffed. Rebound is actually very good. I'm actually going to show you guys some games here. I'm going to go into this. Let's see here. I believe not that one. This one here. Just show you. We died. I don't think, nope, that guy was a lot better than another lock, I thought. That one was a harder one. But this is an Arms Warrior, and this is Fury. This is what my damage is looking like every game. My Rampages are still hitting really hard, over 1 million each time. Average, executes fucking hitting like a goddamn train. Slayer Strike's still hitting hard. Raging Blow, actually, surprisingly enough, is still hitting really hard. Blade Storm is hitting really hard. Bloodthirst is hitting really hard. Onslaught actually feels like it's hitting a lot harder for some reason, and just because Onslaught, I believe, is a lot more modified. I'm not really sure how that all works, but I'm trying to find, because there's been a lot of Destro locks. I'm trying to find where he's at. But even a class that they said was going to be really good, right? So this is also another one. This is also pretty painful to see. You're able to do so much front-loaded damage with Execute, and this is a Hunter. So and this is pretty much through all of his walls, and you can see the game wasn't that much. That was the final Execute that killed him, and that's a minute and 17 seconds in, right? He was so overwhelmed by my damage. He was just getting absolutely slaughtered like an animal. So, and I have a lot of games like these. And these are all the solo shuffles. I mean, mind you, yes, I didn't have a lot played, but if you go back to my other video from previously in the season, I had like 81 games or 81 wins and like 50 losses. Like that's a pretty good ratio to 2,400, right? And it's first day of the season. So, but I'm pretty confident in these builds because these are builds I've worked with all last season, and I've found a lot of success versus running the same fucking talent build every game. Because honestly, bleeds are great, but just having the raw fucking damage from all of your spells also feels really, really good, right? And let's see. And oh, by the way, all of these talents, so like dual wield specialization's been buffed. All these other talents have been buffed, so you're a lot more mobile as Fury anyway. But you can see, even in solo shuffle, I mean, this is a frost mage, and this is like another game where I'm able to stick on my target the entire game, and I'm doing basically the whole other team's amount of damage, right? I'm just off a little bit. I did about 120 million, but I think together they're about 130 something, right? Or 140. But I'm pretty much able to do the other team's damage and absolutely and this is all single target. I think maybe a little bit of cleave, but I was running this build here. I've been running this build all day, and I played it on my other warrior as well. Got up, I think, to 1600 in like 20 games. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna take a break for a little bit. But this is versus a DH that literally kited me all game, and I just chased a DH the entire game. So, if this is any correlation, that Fury is strong right now, especially with the way that everything is like, and this is versus a Windwalker mode. Their slicing winds are hitting for 1.8 million. Fury, it's fucking destroyed by Windwalker, but I was able to do way more damage than him, and he was training me. This same thing, this Redemption guy I was queuing with, it wasn't the best experience, but he did okay, but his positioning, I felt, but whatever. This guy, I don't know if this guy was trying something with Demolish. I think they kind of killed Demolish a little bit. I have to play with it on the arm side of it, but you can see where even running into a sustained ret, right, with the Dawn of Light crap that they do, where this guy did like nothing to me all game. I believe, yeah, this guy, if I'm thinking right, I think that guy was a Glad too from last season. But I've had so many games where I'm fighting Glads from last season and just absolutely slaughtering them in damage. This guy was good. No, not that guy. Hold on. Yep, that was a slaughter too. Killed them. Killed that guy. All these guys have, yeah. I think pretty much the only thing I've really lost to this season so far is Destro. That's because my hero won't dispel Havoc once. So we just instantly get one shot by the Warlock, and eventually we just run out of cooldowns, and they get that other coil, and we just die. So, besides that, and this is all that, like, majority of these games, this is all I'm running, right? And I'm top damage every game because I'm able to stick to the target because of my accelerated agility, right? Or vicious agility. So, just, practice, but like, okay, so I told you the rotation for the Slayer. Mountain Thane, same kind of thing. Onslaught 2 Raging Blows, pop all your cooldowns, Rampage. But the only thing that you're really refreshing is your meat Cleaver with your Thunderclap, and or if you're not running that and you're running a more single target build, make sure you always use Thunderclaps on cooldown. Because they still hit hard and you can still get Thunder Blast from them. Mountain Thane's definitely not more spammy than Slayer's, where Slayer's a lot more, there's a lot more, like, how there's mini buttons, but with Mountain Thane you definitely have a lot more buttons and you have a lot more options as far as dealing damage and killing people. But yeah, guys, it's a 2400 definitive guide. As far as talents, Berserker Roar is really good. Make sure that you get into this talent, otherwise this ain't gonna work. Dragon Roar, Dragon Charge, it's meh, in my opinion. It's fun. I could see it in some ways, but honestly, knocking someone away from you, unless it's like the good old Siege Breaker where you could kind of control it. I haven't got enough practice with it, but it doesn't seem to like knock back as like it used to, if that makes sense. I would love if it did, because that would be fucking chaos. I would love that. But anyway, y'all have a good one. I wanted to bring you the definitive guide for Fury Warrior and 11.1 for PvP, Solo Shuffle, BGs, everything, and y'all have a good one. See ya.